Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we're joined by Amanda from Canine Gut Solutions. So Amanda, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited.
Yeah, so today we're going to get into a hot topic, a necessary topic, and talk about the brain-gut connection for dogs and whole foods. And I think this has become so popular for humans, but we haven't scratched the surface for dogs, and I think we're getting there, So for anyone who doesn't know you, Amanda, give us a little bit of background on Canine Gut Solutions.
Yeah, so Canine Gut Solutions, I'm helping my clients kind of get to the root cause of their dog's gut health issues. So that could be chronic diarrhea, that could be the constant itching, licking, biting. And then I even help canine guardians make the switch from kibble to whole fresh foods and really just guiding them however they see fit. But it all really started on my own journeys with my dogs and knowing there has to be more for them and to help them feel better than feeding them kibble, because that's what they were started off on until I knew better. And if you don't know, you can't do any better. So
Right. Yeah, this has been such a theme for this season of the podcast, and just talking about nutrition. And there's so many different angles and so many different ways to talk about it. And so today's a little bit of a different approach from these last episodes. So I think this will be helpful. It'll reframe the way people kind of think about feeding their dog. So let's first talk about brain-gut connection, and what does that mean?
So the brain and the gut are connected. And if you really think about yourself, if you think about your diet and how you feed yourself and how it makes you feel, sometimes if you're eating a highly processed diet, and that could be, okay, let me have a bowl of cereal for breakfast, and then I'm going and I'm getting a sandwich with deli meats, and then I'm eating pasta with ragu sauce, just any kind of sauce. And then switch that up to, I'm eating eggs, I'm eating bacon in the morning, and then for lunch I'm having a fresh salad with eggs and sardines, and then dinner is a steak with potatoes and green beans. They're completely different diets, and one person is going to feel really crummy on that processed diet versus someone that is eating a whole foods diet. And how much it can really make you feel icky. And, just even for me, I'm lactose intolerant. If I tend to eat something that has dairy in it, I'm not going to feel great.
Right.
And if your dog is going to eat something that they don't normally get, or maybe even a high value treat, processed treat that they don't normally get, they might get diarrhea. So kind of noticing, I feel like, I hope with this podcast today that you guys can kind of notice your dog's behavior and how they feel with the foods that are going in their bodies, and how that can create stress in the body and really make them feel from the gut into the brain. Like, it is kind of hard to put into words now that I think about it. I hope I did something there.
It's hard to conceptualize, but I think it helps to bring it back to us, right? So I know for me, recovering from this surgery, the first kind of like food, I'll put that in quotes, the first kind of food I introduced after my liquid diet was like overcooked pasta in a pasta sauce. And the easiest way to do it was with like frozen meals. And so that was like some of my main food. And you want to talk about feeling terrible, having joint pain, being more anxious, my sleep, forget it, terrible, awful, not able to get into deep sleep, not able to get into REM sleep. And like truly, truly, 90% of those issues was attributable to what I was eating. And, in my past life as a bodybuilder, I could tell when I was prepping for a show for bodybuilding and I was only eating whole foods measured out down to every little macro. I felt great. I slept great. My performance in the gym was great. My thinking was clear, no brain fog. So I can kind of take it back and look at that. And, it's funny as humans, we learn a lot of lessons the hard way, but this is one I don't think a lot of us are learning it. We're letting it repeat itself. And it's okay every now and again, right? You're like, I really want to go to that new Italian restaurant. I know that vodka sauce is going to destroy my stomach, but it's worth it for tonight, right?
Yes, yes.
So it's just helpful to kind of reposition it and think about us and our dogs and kind of how foods can affect us. And so you mentioned stress. More often than not, we think of stress as like outside sounds and stimulus. And for a dog, it's like they're in a kennel and it's noisy. But that's not the only thing that's stress. That's kind of at the end of that spectrum. So we know that stress and emotions can impact our gut health, can impact our digestion. So talk about stress. I mean, what would you call stress? How would you define it for a dog?
Yeah. So looking at a dog that is stressed, and this is kind of identifying the body language as well, and really looking at your dog and how they react. So maybe pay attention to how a certain person they may or may not like walks into a room. If somebody is wearing a hat and they don't really like that hat, where they might start to cower, where they might start to back up, where they might start to hide. If you think, if for a person, you just went through a breakup and your ex-boyfriend's calling you, you look at your phone, your stomach sinks.
Mm-hmm.
That is like that gut response. And that sometimes is what can be happening to our dogs, is having that response. And stress, we can hand off our stress to our dogs. I feel like that is something that is not talked about enough. When you are coming home from work and you're fired up because people don't know how to drive on the road. And then, you're slamming things, you're getting upset, you're letting the dog outside, you're getting their food, and you're just rush, rush, rush. They feel it.
Mm-hmm.
They know it. And that disrupts their gut too, their gut health. Having that stress in the home, if you have toddlers at home like myself and you're constantly yelling and telling them to stop throwing the toys, or let's put a toddler into this and they're, throwing toys, and that makes them scared, that makes them nervous. That is all a part of this picture that we don't really think about. We don't really think about their stress. We don't really think about how it affects them.
Mm-hmm.
But if we think about their behavior and how they might snap, how they might growl, why are they doing that? And I ask you to ask yourself that question, talking to the audience. Think about their behavior. Where is it coming from? Where does it happen? And where does it start? Is something to really consider.
Mm-hmm. I also think about other stressors that we kind of put on our dogs. And I think I've talked about this recently, but like different sounds in our house, different scents in our house. One of our dogs is very sensitive to music. And if it's too loud, he starts kind of like rolling his ears onto the carpet. He's very, very sensitive to it. So for him, like that's a stressor, whereas my other dogs, maybe not. Maybe it doesn't quite affect them. And so it is different for every dog. I mean, even like you said, like that dog that doesn't like seeing people in hats. You and I don't think about that as like a stressor, but for that dog, that's a huge stress for them. That's a huge burden to them emotionally. And it's hard for them to kind of regulate that. And then it affects everything else internally.
Yeah, Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really, I say this a lot in like my social media content, is just thinking outside the box, thinking
Hmm.
differently and thinking creatively and how to really support your dog the best way possible.
Hmm. So let's kind of jump into nutrition and just overall routine. So let's start with nutrition. Let's talk about how nutrition can affect that brain gut connection.
So, when we're feeding our dogs, ideally we want to be feeding them a species appropriate diet. And that can look a lot of different ways for many different people. When we're able to feed them whole, fresh foods, we're fueling their body.
Hmm.
And when we're not able to do that, that's where we kind of see the dysregulation. That's where we see the anxious dogs. Um, Gosh, I'm going to have a webinar this Friday about the same topic and talking to a bunch of people that are in a dog training group because their dogs are anxious, they're worked up, they're,
Hmm.
wound up. Um, so, really, the foods we put in their bodies truly matter. And again, it's going back to us and how we feel when we eat certain types of foods. That's what happens to them. So, ideally, again, whole fresh foods for our dogs. And if we're feeding kibble, we can remove 20% of that kibble and we can add in fresh foods. And you'll start to see a difference in your dog. You'll start to see a difference in their energy,
Hmm.
a difference in their coats. And they'll be even more excited at mealtime.
Right. And when you say whole fresh food, so for vegetables, I've always heard for vegetables, cooking them is better. It's more bioavailable for the dog, easier to digest. I don't know, do you have an opinion on cooked versus uncooked vegetables?
Ideally, yes, it should be gently steamed because dogs don't produce amylase in their body to break it down. So if we're feeding them raw, it's going to, not raw, like a raw veggie, it's
Hmm.
going to be harder for them to digest. And if we already have a stressed dog, whatever we're giving them, we want to make sure that it's going to be more gentle and kind on their digestive tract. So we're not giving them more work to do. So yes, I agree with you. It should be steamed, gently cooked vegetables for sure.
Now you say steamed. Do you think that someone could make them in an air fryer and it would be just as bioavailable and easy to break down? Or does that matter? Is that getting too in the minutia?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. So, like in my mind, steamed, I'm putting it on the stove and the
Right.
stove top and kind of like boiling it or having it doing an actually steaming process.
Hmm.
Um, and the other thing too is we don't want to overthink it. If all you
Yeah.
have is an air fryer right now, have at it. Just listening to recent podcasts and just kind of normalizing whatever you can do is a step in the right direction. So I
Right.
support that 100%.
And do you have any favorite vegetables that you suggest for dogs? Like top
Um,
three?
yeah, I love green beans, your broccoli, and asparagus is
Hmm.
really good as well. So steaming those bad boys, however you can do it, is lovely.
My dogs love all of those. My oldest dog loves kale, which I guess a lot of dogs don't. He loves raw kale. And I've always read that you have to kind of limit it. It can make them a little gassy and kind of upset their stomach. He's obsessed with it. Every time we used to buy it, he would come in and just wait for a piece of raw kale. He loved it. And I don't think normal dogs like kale.
It's definitely a texture thing in my mind. I would think for dogs, but I love that he that's his thing. He loves it.
Hmm. And all of my dogs love carrots. I would say carrots are like their top. And I know carrots aren't kind of in that same leafy green category. Carrots can be a little higher in like sugar content, carbohydrate content, but my dogs love them. And I have seen, gosh, I've seen so many people now on social media. they will boil them in like a bone broth, which of course you got to be careful about the sodium content and everything else, any additives. But doing that to make it, a little more desirable, flavorful, a little higher protein profile. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but I've been seeing it all over social media.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you got the time too and you want to like be your own little chef's, cook for your dog, have at it too. Because
Hmm.
sometimes I love seeing dogs' bowls on social media. Like people go bananas and there's like
Yeah.
different colors, there's different this, and I'm like, good for you.
Hmm. And then do you have recommendations overall on meat and then on seafood? I know for us, we like to do sardines, but sardines are sold out everywhere here right now. And so I had to get I think it was like a pink salmon, and it was canned, and tried to make sure there was nothing added to it. But I don't know if you have opinions on particular fish and then particular meats that you like.
Yeah, so I tend to work with dogs that have sensitive stomachs. They have, we do a food and sensitivity test that kind of gives me what I can work with. So if I have a healthy dog, I mean, chicken is still a good protein.
Hmm.
A lot of people are afraid to use it because it's a common allergy. And it's a common allergy because it's coming from the poor quality of chicken that went in the kibble.
Right.
So if you are buying quality chicken, there shouldn't be a worry. Granted,
Hmm.
listen, if your dog is having severe allergies, this is not for you. But generally speaking, a high quality chicken is perfectly fine. Again, keeping it simple for people and easy to obtain. Yeah, it would be the chicken, ground beef, pork. My husband's a hunter, so we have venison pretty readily available. Um, Fish wise, I love my sardines. Again, whenever you're buying your sardines, just buy them in water, no additives, no oils, no smoked, nothing crazy.
Which is tough, which is so tough because so many of the little containers are smoked and this one's in this oil. And so that's one you got to be careful with.
Yes, yes. And then two other little fishies, mackerel and herring, you can absolutely get in the grocery store as well. They're good to rotate through with sardines. So that's what I
Okay.
would recommend.
I've never bought the other two, so I'll have to look for those next time I'm at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know who in Jacksonville, Florida is on the sardines, but they have bought them out of Trader Joe's, out of Target, out of Costco. There are no sardines.
That is so funny.
Right. I know. I'm like, what's the sardine market right now? So I don't know if we're all just getting sardines to our dogs. Um, but my dogs love them. And so I think they smell atrocious, if I'm being so honest with you. But my dogs go crazy when we crack open a fresh can of sardines. They just come running into the kitchen. They love them.
Fun
Um,
fact, I eat sardines.
really?
Yes. They are nutrient-packed little fishies,
I
and
know. Yeah.
that's what I heard. And I was like, listen, I got to do everything right now because I'm a canine nutritionist. I don't always do the best for myself. So
Right.
if I can find something that is nutrient dense, I will eat it. And I found a way to eat it that is okay. So that's what I do.
I'm proud of you, honestly. That's like 10 out of 10 adulting. You should get like a trophy. You should wear a medal. It says, I eat sardines because I could never. But I commend you because your gut health looks better than mine right now. So let's talk about routine. Do you think that routine plays a factor in this brain gut connection?
Yes. Dogs thrive on routine. So when there's no routine, that's where we're going to throw in those stressors. When we throw in those stressors, we're going to disrupt the gut. And then when disrupting the gut, we're disrupting the brain and how they function.
Hmm.
So if it's chaotic in your house and there's no strict routine for them, it's going to throw them out of balance. So when I'm working with my clients, it's really looking at the whole picture. What is it like at home for your dog? Is your dog stressed? Are they pacing? Do they pant a lot? Sometimes, the dog might not have the like normal allergies. They might not do the itching, the biting, but they might be licking constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Licking constantly can be a form of stress
Mm-hmm.
because they're agitated, they're nervous, they're anxious. Again, this is just to help you think outside the box, because if you notice your dog is doing these things, you're like, oh, he's upset. Oh, he's nervous. Oh, he's hiding again.
Right.
And that's another thing I want to just, if you do have a crate for your dog, not everybody crates, make sure that is easily accessible for your dog to get to, because if they want quiet time, they can have quiet time. They can go up to their cage and they can rest and peace and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I noticed with one of my dogs. I have, again, two little boys, so it gets a little crazy here. He puts himself to bed, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
good for you. I respect that. I close the door and I give him his time.
Talking about the signs of stress, I think the biggest one that a lot of people miss is licking the paws. So people will see it and they're like, oh, they're cleaning their feet. And I would say most of the time they're not cleaning their feet. They are stressed or anxious or in pain. And so I think that's actually a missed sign for so many people. And then I'm sure you've seen the social media videos where a dog's like licking their lips. And you and I can see, like, okay, they're stressed, like, get them out of that situation. And whoever the commentator is just isn't picking up on it. And so I think that's helpful to understand the signs of stress. It might seem cute, it might seem whatever, but trying to recognize, like, oh, wait, they're actually indicating that they're stressed. And then correlating that to maybe a certain time of day or certain action or something going on in the home, which could all relate back to routine, honestly.
Another one, because I like that you kind of said that last piece, is yawning. If
Mm,
you see a dog constantly yawning, they're not tired. They're
right.
stressed. That is a stressed. And again, so many people don't realize that. And when you start to see these things, you can't unsee them. And you're like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, now I understand. And you can help your dog better.
Hmm. And then there's an assumption like if a dog's tail is wagging, they're always happy. And that's just not true. It's not true. You've got to look at some other signs. Maybe the tail's wagging, but the ears are kind of like straight up and like pulled back. And you're like, oh, that dog is very stressed out.
Yeah,
I think that one's just misperceived as well.
100%. Yes.
Now, for people who might not recognize or understand a gut imbalance or a gut issue, what are some symptoms of that or things that people can look at to understand, is my dog's gut healthy or balanced?
I, the first kind of noticeable one will be their stool.
Hmm.
So, ideally, looking at their stool for a couple days in a row, because one day might be normal, the next day might be a little loose, and then the next day it might be fine. And that could be the wane and flow of their stress levels too. So, seeing that gut imbalance in their food, in their stool, and then it could also be them itching. You could also, I'm sorry, going back to kind of like the stool, their stomachs, you could hear gurgling. You
Hmm.
could hear more noise in their bellies, burping, belching. Um, oh gosh, there was another one. Paying attention just to the noises that they make, salivating more, really kind of paying attention to that. And again, it can go back to the itching, the licking, the biting, the ear infections.
Hmm.
70 to 80% of our dog's immune system lives inside the gut. So when the gut is off balance, that can manifest into different types of things.
Right.
So when I'm working with my clients, we do a gut health test and we kind of start there. And then we look at the food and environmental sensitivities. And another thing I really want to point out is healing is not linear. It's not a quick fix, especially when you're trying to do it the holistic way. Know that it's going to take time, but you're going to get to the end goal eventually. It's
Hmm.
not going to the doctors and getting a pill and fixing it right away. And some people get upset that they're not seeing the results that they wanted to. And it is a lot of trial and error as well, trying to get to that root cause.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people, they'll switch the food for 2 to 3 days. They're like, well, nothing changed. I'm going back. And it's like, well, think about yourself. If you only change your food, let's say you tried to go gluten free and you had a gluten intolerance and you only went gluten free for 2 to 3 days, you're probably not going to see the change that quickly. And so I think for dogs, I don't know, I feel like for my dogs, anytime I've made an adjustment like that, it's probably taken, gosh, 2 to 4 weeks, maybe longer, depending on what we changed exactly. One of my dogs that eats raw, he's just always kind of had like a little iffy belly. And so we actually started to do the fermented vegetables from Gussie's gut. And it took a little while to see a change. And now it's almost like his gut has gotten a little bit like, I don't want to say used to it, because that's absolutely not the proper way to say that. However, we're seeing a little more burping, a little more sometimes loose stools. And so the newest thing we're doing is adding goat's milk.
Mm.
And that's very experimental for us because we've never used it. So it's like, how much? How often? And we just started this week, literally. And it's also for us having a very, very small dog, trying to make sure that that it doesn't go bad and that we are, freezing a portion of it. We have a portion in the fridge. That's definitely a trial and error process right now in my household. So it's going to take a while and it's going to have to be something we do for, I don't know, maybe a month to see like, is this helping? Is this working? Do I need to shift somewhere else? So yeah, it's a lengthy process for sure.
Yeah, and to speak on goat's milk, I love it. I had a colleague of mine, I was telling her about my own dog because when they're our babies, it's hard to think critically and how to really
Mm.
help them. So I asked her, and she suggested doing a goat's milk fast.
Mm.
So I'm not suggesting everybody do this, but this is what happened for my dog. She was having chronic GI upset, and we're trying to get her to a happy spot. And we did 3 days on a goat milk fast, and it was just giving her the goat's milk. She lapped it up, she loved it.
Hmm.
And then we slowly introduced the new food, and knock on wood, she's doing amazing.
Wow.
So it is very, very beneficial for our dogs. Um, and again, you do have to be careful with it because it is raw.
Hmm.
We don't recommend any humans to be dabbling with this, but for our dogs, their guts are a lot stronger than ours.
Yeah.
And it's a great tool in the toolbox for sure.
Hmm. Now let's talk about some practical ways to support the brain gut connection.
Yes. So again, that's going to be introducing whole fresh foods to your dog's diet and paying attention to the stressors in your dog's home, if there are any. And even those stressors can be environmental stressors.
Hmm.
That can be a plug-in, that can be a candle, that can be, the carpet cleaner that you use. So if we're going to do something today, look at the home, look at what you're using. I mean, it's good for us too to remove those things and to
Right.
kind of go in a natural approach instead of using a candle to make our house smell better. Food wise, again, sardines is at the top of the list for omega 3s to really help our dogs. I would add some blueberries and even kefir. Kefir is very helpful and beneficial gut bacteria probiotic to use in your dog's bowl as well. And any of these foods that are new to your dog, start slow and start small and pay attention to how they react whenever you add a new one. So maybe one week it's just sardines. check their stool. My husband thinks I'm bananas when I'm like, what are you doing? I gotta go look at Scarlett Jo's poop. Let me just make sure she's doing okay.
Yeah.
And I will say the poop is not the whole story, but it is part of the story. So if you are a little queasy with poop, get used to it. It will give you information. So
Hmm.
those are foods, environmental, and check stressors in your house and paying attention to your dog's body language and what really isn't good for them.
I think what you said earlier is key to these tips. And you said, even if you can only do a little bit or work with what you can. So I know that every time we talk about making food changes, especially when it's introducing whole foods, people automatically start to panic. They start to think about the cost or the amount of time. And so it's just realistic to understand where you're at in your position, economically, time wise, maybe you're too busy to do some of this. There's always a small change that you can make. So like you said, just adding a sardine on top of their dinner. That's such a small change, but it could be substantial. It could help their gut health. It could help their overall, their joints, their eyes, their hair, everything. Swapping out treats for blueberries. I think that that's a great idea rather than, I almost said a brand, I won't say it. Rather than certain brands that you can get that are in a little bag, you can just get a little container of blueberries every week, and that's their little treat. So I think that this doesn't have to be a massive shift all at once, and it shouldn't be, like you said. It really should be slow and incremental, and so it doesn't have to be intimidating. So, Amanda, I know that you offer a lot of different services at Canine Gut Solutions, from, working with dogs with allergies and doing these panels and creating diets. So where can people find you as far as like your website, social media, all of that?
Yeah. So my website is caninegutsolutions.com and my Instagram is caninegutsolutions.com. I tried to keep it easy all across the board. And then I do have a private community for my clients where if they are struggling with the day-to-day, they get that support inside the community. So you're never doing it alone. You get the support, and there's no Googling, there's none of that. And then you're surrounded by a bunch of like-minded people too. So it's a great time inside there.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Well, Amanda, thank you for coming on again. I'm sure we'll have you on to talk even more about nutrition because we have so much to talk about. But thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.